So first, let's go back to this idea of productivity. What is productivity? Let's put our economics 101 hats on for just 1 to 1.5 slides here. Productivity, we're told, is an average measure of the efficiency of production. So we want to strive for ways to measure productivity within our organizations. Now, economists will tell us that there are two processes that reflect productivity measurement. One is called the real process. The other is called the income distribution process. So the real process is your business operations. What is the business model that can develop and return profits to the shareholders? That's the real process. But then there's the income distribution process, which is if you have gains, if you have profits, you have to decide how you share those profits between shareholders and employees. Now, the question I might ask you then to ponder is, how is that sharing determined in your company? What is the philosophy that says we have profits, who gets them? Do they all go to the shareholders? Do they all go to the employees? Or is there some sharing arrangement that's predetermined, that's been thought through? This is a key to ensuring that your productivity gains are being appropriately allocated to those who help produce them. So when you have productivity gains, that means something in the organization is happening faster, cheaper, easier, or better, and I translate better as more value for the customer. And if any one or combination of these four things is happening, you're going to see profitability growth and shareholder value creation. So the question then, I'll repeat it, is does all that value go to the shareholders? If yes, I think that's an indication of what I would call a weak value sharing culture. And there's limited opportunity to use your rewards programs to reinforce a partnership culture and drive further gains. In other words, employees at some point will tire of producing all the value for shareholders unless there's a way to connect the rewards program so that the shareholders who say, no, if we see employees creating value, we want to share it. We want to walk that talk, but we need a process to do that. So let's first begin with ways to consider how you might measure the return on the compensation investment. We're going to define a term we call productivity profit. And we're going to return to this idea, if you've joined us in the past, of ROTRI, the return on the total rewards investment, a VisionLink term that we like to talk about a lot. So what does it mean? It's one way to measure the return on your compensation investment, and it's a relatively simple measurement. Here's how you do it. First, and you might think of this right now for your organization, if you were to add up, just in your mind or on a piece of paper, what's the total of all compensation expense in the company? Salaries, commissions, bonuses, anything you're accruing for a long-term plan, contributions to retirement programs, your core benefit programs, any executive benefits that you offer, and we could add a few other things here, even payroll taxes or things that don't show up quite as fluidly on the P&L. But either way, come up with a number. What's that number for your company? $5 million, $50 million, $150 million. There's a number there. Now we're going to consider that as an annual investment where you're striving to receive a productivity gain on that investment. So what return do you get on your investment? Let's say your number was $10 million and you're getting 10%. That should be $1 million, right? How would you measure that? Is it simply profits? I don't think so. It's not quite that simple. We're going to come up with another interim step to calculate your ROTRI. And here's how to look at it. First, you got to look at your balance sheet, and you have to identify what we'd call your capital account. Now, this can be the sum of all paid-in capital, retained earnings. It might be you might even include debt on this. But the balance sheet will help you arrive at the measurement of the total investment by shareholders. Let's just call that, for today's discussion, the capital account. Now, you might ask the shareholders, what's the minimum return you expect on your capital? The cost of capital. there's risk involved here, so this is going to be often or typically much higher than you'd get in a risk-free environment. In theory, in one way or another, the investors, the shareholders, could take their capital and go invest it elsewhere, probably at lower risk than in a business, and receive some return, so they should get a premium return at some level. Let's imagine our shareholders are comfortable with a 12% return on their capital. So now we can create a capital charge, simply taking 12% times the 20 million. Think of this as the expected return that capital wants on its investment for leaving the capital in the business in simplest terms. So what I'm pointing out here is that there are two mouths to feed here. There's the mouth of capital, then there's the mouth of the employees who are employing that capital to operate your business model and achieve profit. So let's suppose the profit for your company is $10 million. Now we can subtract the 2.4 million from the 10 million and create a term that's our term, you won't see it on your P&L, productivity profit. So to get the idea here, we're allocating profits, our $10 million, between two sources, our capital and our people. Because our people are being paid $25 million, that's our TRI, the sum of all those compensation and rewards programs. So in this case, I've got 20 million in my capital account, an annual expense of 25 million. I want to split my $10 million profit between the two. So I'm allocating 12% of my 20 million to capital, and the remainder, so this is simply the remainder, the 7.6 million, now I have a numerator and a denominator, and I can calculate my ROTRI. So if we calculated profit without consideration for my capital account, I don't think I'm doing justice to the financial commitment that the shareholders have made. Now, 30% ROTRI, is that good? Is that bad? Well, you know what? It's going to depend on your organization, and it's hard to look at it in over one period and say whether it's good or bad. The key is, does it grow from year to year? So if my productivity profit is growing and my capital count is growing, I have to measure this every year and recognize that my variable pay plans, what we call your value sharing plans, bonuses, long-term incentives, things like that, they are financed from your productivity profit. So we'll stay with this concept, but hopefully that's pretty clear. If it's improving, if shareholders are experiencing a positive return on the dollars they're expending on compensation. Now, is it possible to run laboratory scenarios like, well, what if we change this or what if we change that? It's pretty tough to do because you have real people responding to real changes. But it's a simple measurement that might be useful to you as you try to see whether or not shareholders are open to expanding compensation arrangements